All right, I would like to welcome everybody to our regular city council meeting for July 19th, 2021, and would especially like to give a warm welcome to everyone that's in our audience today. It's always a pleasure to have people present at city council and participating in local governments. We're going to go ahead and begin with an invocation by Alicia Swearingen from the Royal Gorge Vineyard. Please rise. Very good.
Father God, we just acknowledge your presence and we thank you so much for who you are and how you work in our lives. Lord, we love our city and we thank you for your goodness to our city. Lord, we do acknowledge that just the decisions that we make today have impact for generations. And so we invite you to give us wisdom in making decisions in all that we do. Lord, we thank you for every employee that works so hard for our city and pours into our city and the community that pours into our city to make it a better place. And God, we just love you and we commit this time to you and ask for all your wisdom in Jesus' name. Amen.
The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
If we could also do roll call, please.
Absolutely. Roll call, please, Denise.
Certainly. Good evening, everyone. Council members Dennehy,
Here.
Gonzalez,
Here.
Jaquez,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we've got you, Dolly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jaquez.
Here.
Reed. Here. Schmischer.
Here.
Brandon Smith. Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Here.
Mayor Smith.
Here. Thank you, Ryan and Denise. I do have some citizens' requests to speak to council, which I will be calling up. But if you are here to talk about anything that is on the agenda, please go to this little table up here and fill out a form and turn it into Denise, and we'll be happy to invite you to make comments on our agenda tonight. Right now, we will start with Bo Cruz. If you'd like to come and address City Council, you will have 3 minutes.
I don't think I ever spoke under 3 minutes except when I was in the confessional. I have some. And my name is Bo Cruz, and I am a citizen of Canyon City. I'm here today to discuss a vicious dog attack on my little puppy Jack. On June the 8th, the neighbors across the street had 3 pit bulls and they get loose all the time. The mother and 2 pups, and they jumped our fence, got in our yard and mauled my little dog. We called the cops, we called the animal control officer. They showed up, they gave her a citation for a vicious dog. A vicious dog. I mean, they put her in the kennel for 7 days. They had a hearing without letting us know because we had a court date. They returned the dog back to her with the stipulation it be muzzled, it be in a closure, and it had to be spayed, which nothing was done. She had 30 days. She's not in compliance with the garbage in her yard. We had a nice, friendly neighborhood. I took food over to her from commodities. The man next door cut the lawn and the grass. And all of a sudden, we're hostages to this dog because everybody grabs dogs, kids, and old people and put them in the house because this dog is running around challenging. She's very aggressive. They took her to the vet in November to get her rabies, and the vet, it's all in the paperwork there before you. The vet couldn't do an exam because she was too aggressive. And even Brenda couldn't get the dog. She had to have the owner take her down to the pound. And this is not right. There's a lot of codes here, and I wish that you would take time to read them because it needs to be updated. Because in it, it states that they can kill the dog or catch it if it's running at large. This little boy come over and grabbed the dog and took him home and put him in the house. Now, this is not right. I want justice for my little dog. You need to look at this stuff, and the attorney needs to look at it and change it because we need justice. And for people like me, my husband's 81 years old, and that was his little dog. He'd take him up and let her run everywhere. Now there's a void in our house. You know, as dog owners, they are part of your family. And then, wham, they're gone. That's not right. When they come into your yard and throw her around like a rag dog. I wish you all could see that. And as dog owners, I want you to review this, changes, and make it known that they can't go around like this with vicious dogs. She's got beware of dogs all over her house. Nobody goes around it. They're not complying with everything that they have summons for. And I go in September for restitution of $420 for a vet bill. She doesn't have a job, her car don't work, she's got 3 kids. I don't expect to get a dime. Thank you.
Although I'm very, very sorry for the loss of your dog, especially to a violent act. Catherine, do you have anything for us that we need to be aware of or to know about the
So
situation?
I've spoken on the phone with Mrs. Cruz a couple of times, and she's correct. Your code only allows the impoundment of dogs if they're at large. So if they're vicious, if they've attacked someone, you need a conviction in order to impound a dog under your code. And you also cannot impound for if the dog is suffering cruelty as a result of its owner or, you know, whoever is in control of the dog. So I think council should undertake that discussion to see whether or not you need to revise your animal code in regard to vicious dogs and cruelty to animals and the city's power to impound. You definitely have that power in general, you just haven't given it to yourself through the code. So, and we can certainly bring back suggested code changes if that's where council would like to go.
Any feedback from council?
I think that'd be a fantastic idea. Let's get some updated and let's get a code where, you know, one, it protects the dog owner and then there is some penalty in that for the people whose dogs do vicious things like this.
My husband said if it gets in the yard, it's dead. But then we're gonna get a summons because you used a firearm in the city limits.
So it sounds like we will explore options and have a future discussion.
Okay, we'll bring something back for you.
Can I
Yeah, go ahead,
Can
Doc.
I speak? Sorry, I don't know how to press a button to let you know I want to say
Just
something.
speak up anytime.
Didn't we just recently have a discussion about vicious animals in our code?
Yeah, so this is the updated code that we made it so they could.
That is the updated code.
Yeah. So Dolly, or Councilmember Gonzalez, we modified the definition of vicious to include, I believe, attacks on dogs or attacks on humans. It was one or the other, and that's what we changed. That's the only thing we changed. I believe we might have also had a discussion regarding impoundment, but there weren't any changes made at that time. So this would be more about when you can impound the dog. I think the definition of what constitutes a vicious dog is satisfactory after that last change.
I understand. Okay. Yeah, I would like to review that for sure. Thank you.
It killed my dog.
I do see someone from the audience who would like to speak. I will need you to come to the microphone, but then I'm also going to need you to fill out a form when you're done.
My name is Ruth, and I'm here to support Bo. But I also have a niece that is a veterinarian, a very, very high qualified veterinarian in Pueblo, Colorado. And she has told me numerous times because another niece has a pet bull and they had to put that pet bull down because it went after another dog. And they said, once they get a taste of blood, they're not going to stop. And my question is what's going to happen when this dog attacks a little boy or a little girl? Because they are very strong dogs and they will kill that child, guaranteed. So I just wanted to bring that to your guys' also attention.
Thank you. And if you could please take a piece of paper, one of the forms, and fill it out on that table right behind you. And then bring it up to Denise. So we will have a future discussion. Staff, if you could also notify Bo when we have that discussion. And I see we have Doug is here from the Humane Society. It'd be interesting to hear from your input as well when those conversations take place, if you don't mind participating in that. Maybe some veterinarians as well. Next we have Mark.
Good afternoon, good evening. We were here on the side-by-side issue a couple, I don't know, a month ago. So again, we're not trying to drag this out or keep wasting everybody's time. We're just trying to see if we've moved any further, if we're getting anywhere with our request.
That goes to you, Ryan.
Yeah, we received the legal analysis last week and we've done some additional research. So we'll be setting up a meeting probably in early August.
Early August?
Yes. So probably the week of, I think it's the 10th or so.
Okay. Okay.
So,
okay. Is there anything we can do to help out as far as anything?
yeah, I think from as far as forming that citizen committee, picking 2 or 3 folks,
Which we have.
and then we'll reach out and we'll set up that meeting and get something scheduled.
Okay.
And the answer is participate. Yes.
Yep.
And do what? I'm sorry.
Participate.
In the meeting, yeah.
That's what we're doing, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's what we're trying not to bombard you. So I mean, we could participate heavily if you know what I mean?
Well, we
But
mean,
we're
when we
trying
call-
to,
yeah, when we organize the meeting in August to come and participate.
okay. Okay, so don't show up till then?
Well, I mean, you're welcome to show up as much as you want, but
Okay.
it is getting done.
Okay, and that's all we're asking, you know what I mean? So the participation's there. That's
Mm-hmm.
why we've been here. We've taken off time of work and everything else to participate. So like we did 2 weeks ago when we did show up late, but we all had businesses, like my business isn't closed still. So, I mean, it is hard to get away sometimes, to show up. So we're doing our best to participate, but we sure will.
Well, thank you guys for showing up. We appreciate it. But I guess for me, if you guys can just kind of be thinking and putting together on paper some of the, you guys talked a lot about like some safety measures
Yep,
and some
we-
specific things you've researched.
We have that.
So that would be helpful too. And then we
Got
can kind of collaborate because
Absolutely.
we're all business owners too. So then,
Yep.
and all of us can be respectful of each other's time to be able to
Absolutely.
get this done. But no, I really appreciate you guys coming back
Okay,
and
and we do
making
have it
sure.
on paper, so would you like it sent to you, emailed or?
Yeah,
That's,
that'd be helpful ahead of
Yeah.
time. Absolutely.
That'd
And
be
we
great.
did kind of break that out as far as safety goes, everything that we agree with, and think should be
Right.
held to standards as well.
no, that would be great. I think just being able so that we can review those things side by
Yeah.
side and then kind
Definitely.
of come up with the vision.
Now, we did mention last time that there's the Rockvale and them have already done that. There is part of that we don't. I mean, they allow children, which we don't agree with any of that. I mean, you should have to be a licensed driver to be able to be. So, I mean, there are certain things, if you look at theirs, what we don't agree that should be happening here either. So,
No, that's
we
helpful to
have
kind of
those.
see the vision of everything too. So
Yeah.
that way when we're comparing.
So,
perfect.
so when we set that meeting, early mornings, afternoon, evening,
So I mean, the 3 or 4 of us that will be showing up, I mean, we can make anything work, to be
Okay.
honest with you, as long as we have a little bit of a lead
we'll,
time. on
we'll
it.
try and get something out this week to
Awesome.
get it scheduled.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you for
Thank you.
keeping your thumb on it. And then Doug Ray from the Humane Society.
Hi, everyone. I'm gonna take a hard left here first. First thing I want to say is I'm very sorry for your loss. And I am. There's nothing, there's worse things, but what you experience is probably one of the worst things a dog owner can experience. And I also like to say that the shelter, for you and for anybody else listening, the shelter is a holding facility. The shelter does not have any police powers. That's very unfortunate in cases like this, when I would have made a different decision that was made from either the courts or animal control. So I just want to throw that out there to say that when you were talking about the animal being released, that's completely out of our hands at the animal shelter. I really wish it wasn't, because a lot of decisions are made that I just don't agree with. Yeah. Okay. Everybody, except you, Dolly, has data in front of them tonight, and it's a 6-month update. And what it does is it's going to cover the first 6 months of 2021. And some of that data is compared to the first 6 months of 2020. And since you got such a full house here, I'll try to get through this as quick as possible. The first page, that's simply raw data for Canyon City only. These are the animals that came in. As you can see, they're by species and how the animals came in, and whether they were alive or dead. I will get into great detail about these numbers in just a minute. On the second page, the first 4 sections are data that for the entire shelter and for all the areas that we provide services to. We provide services, so if you don't know, through Fremont County, Canyon City, Florence, Custer County, Williamsburg, Rockville, Coal Creek, Westcliff, Silvercliff. And all of these numbers in the first 4 are just about the shelter. The last 3 are Canyon City specific numbers that are just appropriate to you folks. So the first section, where it says total shelter intakes, again, this is data through June 30th, 2021. And I use YTD a lot. That just means year to date. So year to date, the shelter has received a total of 558 live animals. That's 379 dogs, 163 cats, and 16 others. And an other is anything that's not a cat or a dog. Last year at this time, the shelter received 515 live animals. That's an 8% increase in live animals so far this year. When you add the 104 DOAs, that's dead on arrivals in 2021, the shelter received a combined 662 intakes. And then when you look at last year, when we added 66 DOAs at this time, the shelter received 581. So again, that's an 8% increase in live intakes so far this year, and a 14% overall increase live and DOA. Now, animal intake, this is how the animals came into the shelter. The first one is owner turn-in. You have a cat, you have a dog, you can't keep it for whatever reason. You bring it to the animal shelter, you surrender it. That's considered an owner turn-in. We received 138 dogs, 138 animals. That's 83 dogs, 49 cats, and 6 others. Now, owned animals made up 25% of all live intakes for the shelter. So 1/4 of all the animals we received were owned animals. Compared to last year, 24% at this time, so we're about the same. Resident stray, I was on the way to work the other morning and there was a dog running loose and I pulled my car over and I was able to catch the dog. I brought the dog in. That would be considered a resident stray. We've received 173 so far this year, 87 dogs, 80 cats, 6 others. Resident strays, so if you're a resident in Canyon City and Fremont County, any of the 9 areas that I talked about, they made up 31% of all live intakes so far this year, 41% in 2020. So we're 10% down, but 41% was a very high number, and I think partly because of COVID. Return adoptions, when an animal is released and adopted, it's called adopted, and when it's returned, it's called a return adoption. We've had 15 of those so far this year, 13 dogs and 2 cats. That just makes up 3% of all live intakes, 3% last year, so we're right on pace where we were last year. Now, year to date, Fremont and Custer residents accounted for 59% of all live shelter intakes, 326. So the residents alone have made up almost 60% of all the shelter intakes. In 2020, the same Fremont and Custer residents, again, this is all the 9 areas we serve, accounted for 69% of all live intakes. So the residents' intakes this year are down some, but it's still a relatively high number. 59% is a high number. We also transferred in 68 animals this year. That's transfer in is we work with rescue group, Soul Dog. Soul Dog is a rescue partner that works out of the reservation. We get an awful lot of animals from them. We received 68 from them so far this year. That's 12% of all live intakes. Now, there's the residents, and then there's the ACOs, the sheriffs, and the police. Again, for the 9 areas we serve, 164 animals have been brought in by that group alone. 149 dogs, 11 cats, and 4 others. So the ACOs, when I say ACOs, I mean everybody. I mean the police and the sheriff. They make up 29% of all live intakes. Last year at this time, that same group made up 27%. So we're really on pace where we were last year, even though COVID was such an odd year and it really did a job on the shelter. The numbers are proving out that we're right on pace where we were last year. DOA just again means dead on arrival. 104 animals so far this year. Last year at this time, we saw 66. This is a skyrocket number. 58% year-to-date increase in DOAs. That's just a remarkable number. I'm not quite sure why so many animals are dying in the streets right now. Next category is animal outcomes. The first one was incomes, intakes, how they come. Adoptions, we've done 251 adoptions so far, 131 dogs, 110 cats, 10 others. 45% of all the animals that have come into the shelter have been adopted. Last year at this time, we did 47%, and you should know that 47% is the highest adoption rate I've seen in the 7 years here. So we're doing really good job with adoptions over at the shelter this year and last year. Owner reclaim, we talked about the strays earlier. Owner comes in and they say, hey, that's my dog. They want to reclaim their dog. We've done 180 of those. That's 170 dogs, 9 cats, and 1 others. Owner reclaims make up 32% of all the animals leaving the shelter. Transfer out, 81. That's 55 dogs, 24 cats, 2 others. That's a 15% transfer out rate, 19% last year, so we're a little lower this year than last year. Stolen, escape, release, that's just a category I have. We've never had anything stolen. We've never had anything escape. We have released animals for cats in particular, trap, neuter, release. That's what that is, 2 of those. Deaths so far this year, we've seen 7, 3 dogs and 4 cats versus 14 at this time last year. So we've seen a 50% less animal deaths in 2021 with an 8% increase in live intakes. Next category is save rate. Year to date, the shelter saved 98.56% of all the animals we received, and that's 100% in, 100% out. So we saved 98.64% of all the dogs, 97.55% for cats, and 100% for others. 97.49% save rate as of this time last year is a little lower than where we are right now. So we're doing a better job saving animals in the shelter this year than we did last year. And just so you know, last year, we ended the year with a 97.46% save rate. So we're doing a fantastic job with save rate at the animal shelter this year. And the last 2 categories are Canyon City specific. Resident turn-ins, owner turn-ins, 60. So 60 people who live in Canyon City. Now, I live in Canyon City, but I also live in the county. So if I was to bring a dog in, it would get tagged to the county, wouldn't get tagged to the city. So 60 animals from Canyon City have been turned in that were owned. That makes up 11% of all total intakes. The resident strays, people who find strays running the streets, 76 were brought in. That makes up 14% of all total intakes. Again, Canyon City only. Return adoptions, 6 people who adopted in Canyon City returned 6 dogs. That's only 1% of total intakes. And transferred in 3. 2 dogs and 1 cat. What that means is if somebody finds an animal after hours and it's an emergency case and they can't bring it to the shelter, they can't bring it to their vet because it might be closed, they bring it to an emergency vet, and that vet will take care of the animal, send the animal to us, they transfer it to us, and then they also transfer us the bill. So that's for the residents. Now, the City of Canyon City ACO and police intakes, this is year to date. They've accounted for 11% of all intakes, that's 59 total. While last year at this time, the same group accounted for 94 intakes. So that's a 37% year to date decrease in municipal intakes. So the ACOs and the police are bringing in 37% less animals this year than last year, even though we're seeing an 8% increase in live animals at the top of the page. And lastly, The summary, Kansas City accounted for 37% of all live intakes so far through the first 6 months of this year. That's 204 animals. And that's 39% when you add in the DOAs, or 259 animals. For all of 2020, the entire year, Kansas City accounted for 48% of all live intakes, 549. And for all of 2020, Kansas City accounted for 52% of all live and DOAs. So as you can see, Kansas City's accounted for 37% of the animals so far this year, when typically you're at 52. And so you can really go back to the ACO police thing and say the difference is right there, as far as you guys come in. So there might be a little more information you asked for. I know when I asked Ryan, I wanted to do this. I didn't realize how detailed I was going to get, so I apologize since you got a full house here. But
Thank you, Doug. We know you're really passionate about the care that you give our animals at the Humane Society. Are there any questions or comments from council? All right, thank you, Doug.
thank you. Oh,
Going to now move on to the council member announcements. Are there any announcements from council members? Councilmember Jaquez.
The one thing I want to bring up, gentlemen, hang tight for a second. I always mention to folks that the only way we learn to do things is by people coming in and talking to us. These groups of folks came in with a project they think is worthwhile. They've done their homework, they've done their checking and everything else, and we appreciate that so we can work with them. The poor lady that lost the animal, she came in and she brought up something that we have to look at.
Absolutely.
That's how things get done. So sometimes we don't get to look at everything that's out there.
For sure.
And by you folks coming into our meetings and bringing this stuff up, talking to us, that's how we can make Kansas City a better place to live and look at stuff. Also, we'll probably have to look at with regards to the problem with the animals and that. Euthanizing them, we might have to look at how we handle with the humane shelter and everything else. So the more people come in and talk to us about problems, we can't solve all the problems, but we sure can't even look at some of the problems if you don't come in and talk to us. That's why we're here, okay? You know, you can give us a call at home, send us messages and that, but you are the ones that help us make this town a better town to live in and a better town for people to want to move and come in here and enjoy what we have here in Canyon City.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
No, and we appreciate everything that you guys do. We do. I know we're not as polished as everyone else, but I mean, we do know that you can't, wave your wand and change it right now. You know what I mean? We do understand that too. So we appreciate you guys as well. Okay, thank you.
Good night, y'all. Any other?
Hey, can I couldn't get my button to unmute me quick enough, but I had a question for Doug.
Doug,
Is he still there?
is there a question you'd like to put on public record to have him answer later?
Well, just about the transfer rate and what that means. Did he leave?
Yeah, he is gone.
Okay, I can call him.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you, Dolly. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I couldn't unmute quick enough.
Councilmember Dennehy.
And I just want to say, everybody, I hope you come out and see the Whitewater Festival. This is a Canyon City's premier festival this weekend, and let's everybody just have fun and be safe out there.
Absolutely, thank you. All right, if there aren't any more announcements, I'll turn the time over to Ryan Stevens to go over our consent agenda, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of council, item 7A is to approve the minutes for the regular city council meeting. 7B is to accept the 2A audit from Logan and Associates. And the agenda I have, I think, is different than what was published. So 7D should authorize the city administrator to sign a IGA for the coordinated election on November 2nd. 7D is to award bid 3721 2A 2021 Evelyn Drive to Langston Concrete in an amount not to exceed $281,163. 7E is to award bid 3921 for the boiler replacement at Royal Gorge Museum to Wind Supply not to exceed $22,903.60. 7F is to award bid 4321 low voltage switchboard to Graybar Electric Company in the amount of $75,358.90. And 7G should be receive and file a list of bills for cash disbursements and the P card disbursements.
Tammy, do you want to come up and talk about the audit? And do we have the auditor here as well? Looks like, yeah. I'd like to invite both of you to come up and give a report on the audit, if you like.
And the revised agenda that went out, the audit from Hinkle and Associates, which is the CAFR that you got as the supplement, was moved to the first item in discussion under 10.
All right, so we had we had our 2A audit, which reviewed our procedures and to make sure that everything that we spent the sales tax, the 1% sales tax on in the 2A fund was appropriate. That's what you're approving in the consent agenda. As Administrator Stevens mentioned, we do have under discussion the actual financial audit.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So we will save that conversation when it comes on the regular agenda. My apologies. But while you're up here, Tammy, I think we might have some questions about the bid process for item F, and that's the low voltage switchboards. Or wait,
For the boiler?
I'm thinking the boiler, actually. Yes.
So we did put the bid out on BidNet like we have been doing. We did have documents that showed up for wind supply, but when the unofficial bid results went out, they called us because their number did not show up. So our procurement analyst, she went over, senior person tech, sorry. She went over and talked to them, and they handed her their bid because they said, we don't know why the numbers aren't showing up. And at that point, she said, well, you only uploaded the one document, you did not upload the other document. So they did not realize that they had not attached all of the documents at that point. They had also at that point brought up that at previous bids, they thought they had submitted and didn't think anything of it when they didn't receive award of it. And so now they realize that there's some issues in the way that they were submitting, and they know now that we will go do training for them on the next time they want to bid. So they did already have the document prepared. They had no clue that part wasn't uploaded. So we feel that it was, a legitimate mistake.
It was submitted before the other bids were opened. Or no?
With BidNet, it automatically opens at a certain time. So if it says it ends at 11 a.m., at 11 a.m., all of our numbers come through. And so then that's when they had reached out to us because their number did not show up in there. And they were asking why it did not show up. And then that's when Dana went over and spoke to them, and they handed her the document at that point.
And Ryan, do you have something to add to that?
No, just reiterate what Tammy was saying, that they've submitted previously for other projects, and the same issue happened where their numbers didn't show up. They didn't submit the full packages, and this is the first time that they've actually questioned why that's happened. And apparently they've been uploading information incorrectly into the BidNet system.
So this is the first time it's been discovered that this been.
Correct.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just a question about our uploading procedure. If I were to bid on a city project and upload documents, do I have any way to tell what documents have been uploaded?
You can see the documents that you submit if you go back in and look at your account. But if you thought you had everything attached in one document and you uploaded a file, you could have not uploaded the right file. So depending on how thorough of job you do on going back and verifying you may not realize it.
But there is a way to verify that you have submitted a complete package.
The way that this one was set up, it did not have to say that there was a separate actual document for the bid documents. And so there wouldn't have necessarily been saying that it was complete, where some of the others, it asks for various items. You have to drag and drop your files into each of those areas. You know, if we ask for insurance, or if we ask, you know, for certain specifications, there's certain areas for all of that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Schmisher.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could you please just clarify, you mentioned that BidNet automatically opens the bids. Does that mean that Wind Supply could also see what other companies' bid prices were at that point when they discovered their error?
They cannot see it until we put the unofficial bid results out. And so when I say it automatically opens it, what it does is at the 11 o'clock when the bids open, then we as the city and who has the logins can go in and see what the results are from everybody else. And at that point, once they're opened, you cannot submit any others online.
Thank you for clarifying that those amounts are not open to the public or available to be seen by other than city council or city
Well,
employees.
Once we publish the unofficial results, you can see them.
Were those published before or after Wind Supply came forward?
They were published, and that's when Wind Supply asked. And so they're published actually on that bid. So when it says, you know, that you've bid on this, then it would say that their results are published, and they would be able to go see what others had. You know, they could compare what they had bid compared to what everybody else had bid.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
So when they submitted their package, they had already seen what other companies had bid. That just makes me feel really uncomfortable.
When they called us, yes, they had seen what the others had bid. At that point, they did not realize what documents they had uploaded, because when Dana had spoke to them, they had not realized that, because they handed her the paper, and then she said the reason it did not show up is because you only uploaded your W-9, not the actual bid tabulation.
Is there a way for those uploads, as same question probably as Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick's, to make it more transparent when you're uploading documents, that you know, you can see and know what's uploaded and that the application is indeed complete?
When it's set up, they can request that they upload a W-9, and it has to have a file attached. You also can put that you have to have bid documents. You can have a file attached. All it's going to do is look and say, yes, I uploaded a file under the W-9, a file under this, but it still does not say, it still does not guarantee that you've submitted the right files in each of those categories.
So they already have the different categories,
You can ask for the different categories, yes.
and it was uploaded wrong. Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just say I share your concern, but since this is a repeat occurrence that they had not identified that there was a problem, there were previous bids submitted with no dollar amounts attached. And because of that, I think that, it mitigates the ability to see others' bids.
Councilmember Schmisher.
Thank you. Ryan, could you explain to us a little bit about the standard operating procedures that the city employs when it reviews bids, and whether or not this falls within those standard operating procedures, or if you're asking us to make some sort of policy exemption or exception? Thank you.
Yeah, I would say this would be a policy exception, because this is not within our standard operating procedures. Normally, we would only be considering the bids that we received in a timely fashion, but as we've stated previously, we believe there's an extenuating circumstance with this particular situation.
Councilmember Reed.
I was gonna ask the same thing that Amy did, was just trying to understand why we made this exception. I mean, I understand the technicalities of why we made the exception, but I also know that from a government perspective, exception is where we kind of get ourselves in trouble. And when we decide not to make those exceptions, people are offended. And I can think of many situations, even in, elections or other things where the rules are the rules. And so I do also feel really uncomfortable with the fact that we made this exception, even though, yes, I understand that it's happened before. And I wish, no ill will on their business, but I am not comfortable with us deciding at this one particular time, because who's to say that another business hasn't made an error before and he said, no, I'm sorry, this is the rules. So I'm just concerned for the precedent that we're setting.
Yeah, and this has not been awarded. This is what you're awarding tonight. So if you'd want to go to the next bid, that would be Rampart Supply.
Are there any other questions from council? Yeah, Councilmember Schmisher.
Just one further thing, in looking through all of the bids, I would also just want to highlight or note that I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Director Nordyke or Administrator Stevens, that Wind Supply is the only local company that bid on this particular RFP.
That is correct. And they do have a 5% preference, so they could have been 5% higher than the next highest bidder and still receive the bid.
Well, I'll leave it to council's discretion. Go ahead, Councilmember Dennehy.
The one thing I'm going to interject, and I totally agree with Councilmember Reed. We do have that, but the other thing that we do have, and I think Councilmember Reed would agree with me, is that we're also here to serve the people and to save, we're spending their money and we got to spend that wisely as well. And this is a tough call, and I agree with you 100%. This is a hard thing, but we also we got to keep in the fact that this is our citizens' money, and this was a mistake that could have been, who knows which direction it really came, but in the bottom line, Wind Supply definitely came in cheaper than the rest, which I believe would be the way to go to save our residents, and our cities the money.
Catherine, Ryan, is this process an administrator thing or is this via municipal code?
It's a process. You have a purchasing policy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the code kind of talks generalizations, but not in detail like this.
It does. And, purchasing policy, that's another one of those policies that's outdated. And it's one of the things that's on our list of things to revamp.
Well, I know former council member Jim Meisner, this was very important to him that there was absolute and utmost integrity, especially in the bidding process, in the opening of bids. And we need to get this taken care of because I don't like the way this has been done. I just don't. Dolly, do you have something you'd like to add?
I just had a question. I thought you were finished talking. Go ahead and finish.
No, go ahead, Dolly.
My one question is, how often has Wind Supply submitted bids in the past?
The only thing that what I had heard from Dana was that there was another project that they tried bidding on earlier in the year and they had the same issue. Prior to that, I do not know if they have submitted any bids to the city or not. We've only been using the electronic system for about a year now because we had switched to doing that with COVID, just because we could not do in-person bid openings.
Okay, and then, thank you. How often has this issue happened in that time period? Not just with Wind Supply, but with any other vendors, contractors?
We've actually had a few other vendors reach out to us that have had issues uploading, and they reached out to us prior to the bids closing, and Dana went over and helped them get everything submitted. an example was earlier in the year when we went out for bid for our vault toilets and the receptacle pickups. The first time we put it out, we didn't have any bids because they did not know how to do it. And so we redid it and we reached out to the vendors and we went and trained them how to do it so we would get bids.
Okay. So I guess I'm trying to figure out if this is our error and we need to fix this, or which I think that there's some of this that does need to happen, but should that disqualify them from the bid process? Because it's a difficult process to understand. I guess that's where I'm at. So I guess I'll just keep listening. Thank you. Sorry.
That's a good point, Dolly. Councilmember Schmisher.
Thank you. I'm wondering if there's any reason, I mean, understanding the importance of bid integrity and also the taxpayers' dollars, I'm wondering if there's any reason why we couldn't simply put this out for bid again, cancel the bid that's come in and put it out for bid.
Well, now everybody is seeing the numbers. That's where it gets.
Well, and it costs them to do that every single time they do it. It costs the vendors.
Legally, there's no issues with doing that.
Certainly something we could do if that was council's choice.
Catherine,
What'd you say?
what would be your reaction to that suggestion? I think we've had those questions before and there have been some legal implications.
I mean, you can reject all bids and rebid a project. You're always authorized to do that. And that's essentially what you would be doing. That happens. I don't know if this is a circumstance in which that should happen. That's really a policy choice on your part to make that decision. There's obviously some issues with the proposed winning bid and its submission and timing and everything like that. So, you know, you may see that as an exception not to be made in this case. And you know, Tammy and her group can continue working with vendors and getting them trained on BidNet. That's an option as well. So it's really ultimately a policy decision, but you are legally authorized to reject all bids and bid it again. And as Councilmember Schmisher almost stated, I mean, everybody would have the information. So, and so you have to weigh that into that decision.
Right. I do, just in response to Mandy in one of talking about the consistency, and there is a little bit of distinguishment because this is an administrative policy versus a municipal code and the election process, which is written into law. So there, I see that there is a little bit of flexibility and leeway for judgment, but as Dolly said, if we've been having to go out and train people in person through the bidding process, obviously there's some complications there as well. Councilmember Reed.
So just so I'm clear, the staff recommendation is to accept this bid, right, Ryan?
Yeah, the recommendation, from staff is to approve the wind supply bid.
So at this point, it's up to council to make a movement to accept the consent agenda as is, or if you want to amend it and vote accordingly. Councilmember Schmisher.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I actually have one other question about another item on
Absolutely.
the consent agenda. With regard to the 2A report, I was a little bit surprised that it was called an audit when the Logan and Associates report, third paragraph down, says we were not engaged to and did not conduct an audit. So I just wanted to make sure that we had labeled it correctly and that we were approving it correctly and not inadvertently calling it something that it's not. Thanks.
All right, go ahead, Tammy. We talked about this one earlier.
Right. They do review all of the transactions, but they review them in the sense that it is in compliance with what the ballot question said. So they review the procedures and to make sure we're in compliance. They see if there's anything that looks like it shouldn't be charged there. And then if there are things that they think shouldn't be charged there, they make recommendations for us to move to move those out. So what's your opinion, Catherine?
Well, so I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the 2A audit is really something that's internal to the city. The other audit is a legal requirement under state statute. And that's probably why they're making that differentiation in their report, is that the audit for 2A is completely internal to the city as requested by the city, and it's not a state law requirement. So it may not reach the level of a full state audit under the local government audit law.
So the 2A audit, the financials are audited under the Hinkle Associates audit. The compliance with the statute it's more of a compliance audit, what Logan and Associates did.
So some background information. When 2A went to the ballot, there was a citizen committee that formed the ballot question, and it was incredibly important to them that the money that was spent on that 1% sales tax went for street construction and street reconstruction only, not to equipment, not to staff costs, nothing but street reconstruction. And so in the ballot, it said we needed to have an independent audit, independent of the auditor. So Logan Associates is a different company of the audit that did for the city. So an independent audit of our independent auditor to make sure that that money was spent only on street reconstruction and nothing else. And so that's what this is on item B. Does that make sense, or is that more confusing?
No, it absolutely makes sense and is very helpful background. I'm just, I guess, then a little bit more concerned because Logan and Associates doesn't audit. Like, this is not an audit. It's a compliance report. So if we're required to do an audit,
Well,
we're required to contract.
it
with an
probably was
external
more of a
auditor.
compliance report. Did we spend the money the way it was supposed to be spent? Was it spent on reconstruction only? Was it spent on asphalt? Was it spent on design?
Eligible expenses.
Yeah.
And Councilmember Schmischer, if it would make more sense to amend that title to say to receive and file the agreed upon procedures relating to Canyon City special election referendum 2A for 2021 versus an audit. Maybe that is what we need to do.
Thank you so much for that suggestion.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
a
that's
lot
it, yeah.
longer, but I think
Write
it's a
it
lot
down.
clearer.
Mayor Pro Tem,
I have a question. Oh, I'm so sorry.
go ahead, Dolly, you go first, and then we'll hear from council member.
Oh, this is so hard. So I have a follow-up question from Councilwoman Schmischer's question. We've done an audit every year. What was the language? Can we look back and see what the language was in regards to those audits or compliance checks from previous years, just to see if we are if we're consistent with it? That's my only suggestion.
I believe previously they were all referred to as audits.
So the language this year is different.
No, this is consistent with what we've used in the past.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So we'll ask. Okay, I'll make my comment first, then we'll probably ask you to repeat that amendment.
The new title.
But I would recommend that next year in this audit, that Logan and Associates include the language from the ballot in their letter to us, so that we can all read and see, and that maybe they can speak to the specific provisions of that ballot measure, and that way it's not, you don't have to go somewhere else to find all the information, and be more self-evident.
Okay. And what was your recommendation for that new title for the accept and file annual 2A special election?
Accept and file the agreed upon procedures relating to the Canyon City special election referendum 2A for fiscal year ending December 31, 2020. Probably did make it longer.
I'm writing some things down here. Is there any other questions about the consent agenda? And I would like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda and agenda. Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Oh, shoot. Mayor and council, I move that we approve the agenda and consent agenda with the additional language concerning the 2A audit, that the accept and file the 2A audit using the agreed upon special procedures from referendum 2A, if that works,
And I'll second that.
because I didn't capture it all.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll call a vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Dennehy,
Hi.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Aye.
Councilmember Hawkes,
Reluctantly, aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Schmisher,
Aye.
Mayor Ashley Smith.
I don't get a
No,
vote, but
yeah,
it
you
has passed, and thank you, City Council. We really appreciate that lengthy discussion. It was important to have it today. Ryan, would you like to give an administrator's report?
Yeah, you have the written report in your packet. We're running a little long. There's still a lot of agenda to cover. So the only thing I want to, it's actually not in the report, but I want to report is the PD dedication, renaming the building to the Martin D. Stefanik Municipal Police and Justice Center. That dedication is going to be August 20th at 10 a.m.
Excellent. Glad to hear it.
And I'm happy to take any other questions about the written report.
Any questions from council? All right, then we are going to move on to item number 9A, and I'm going to open the public hearing. And it's for 9A, first reading and adoption by title only, Resolution 16 series of 2021 entitled, "A Resolution of the City of Canyon City, Colorado approving a special use permit for a multi-unit dwelling on certain property within the city of Canyon City." I'll turn the time over to Patrick Mulready.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, and members of the City Council. This evening, we are here to consider a request for a special review use to allow multifamily residential as the principal use of a property in the CB Central Business District Commercial Zone. The subject property is located at 508 and 510 Greenwood Avenue, and as you mentioned, this is a public hearing. Subject property is located mid-block on Greenwood Avenue, approximately 135 feet east of the intersection of Greenwood Avenue and North 5th Street. It was platted with the original incorporation of Canyon City. It contains a duplex structure, which according to assessor's records appears to date from 1927, and an accessory structure whose construction dates from the 1950s. Although what has previously been used for non-residential purposes, whatever non-conforming status it had went away when it became the office and clinic for the Pregnancy Center of Fremont County. Property is approximately 5,826 square feet, which is also well in excess of the minimum lot size for the CB district. That's 5,280 square feet. The site is very convenient walking distance to the Fremont County offices, the Fremont Center for the Arts, Macon Plaza, and the Canyon City Library. In the CB Central Business District Commercial Zone, multifamily residential as the principal use of the property is a special review use. The intent behind this provision was to limit ground floor residential uses, particularly along the Main Street corridor. The subject property is 2 blocks off Main Street in a neighborhood with other residential uses of property, including on the ground floor. The applicant is proposing to create 3 dwelling units on site, each with 2 bedrooms. It should be noted that within the CB Central Business District Zone, parking requirements have been waived by municipal code. However, staff did ask the applicant to consider providing off-street parking on site. The prepared illustrative layout demonstrating how it can fit 6 parking spaces on site, which is what code would require for 3 two-bedroom units. You can see that in the picture that's just opened. And with that, as defined in section 17.24.030B, special review uses are evaluated against 6 criteria ranging from size and location, traffic generation and parking, to buffering, to the potential to generate nuisance conditions upon neighbors. Staff has evaluated this request to allow multifamily residential as the principal use in the CB zone district against these 6 criteria and found that the proposed use will be harmonious with the scale and character of this particular neighborhood and will not create land use conflicts for surrounding properties. Therefore, staff and the Planning Commission did conduct a public hearing on this request at the end of June. Staff and the Planning Commission recommend that City Council approve the proposed special review use for multifamily residential at 508 and 510 Greenwood Avenue with the adoption of Resolution 13, Series of 2021. That would conclude the staff presentation. As always, I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have. I did not see the applicant sneak into the meeting, so I don't know if Chris McIntyre is here in the audience tonight.
Are there any questions from council?
Just one point of clarification, it's resolution 16, not 13. So your agenda is correct.
Anyone from the public like to speak? Then I'll close the public hearing and I'll ask for a motion in a second. Councilmember Dennehy,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 16, series of 2021.
Second.
there's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll call a vote.
Councilmember Dennehy,
Aye.
Councilmember Smisher,
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Aye.
Councilmember Hawkes,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Aye.
Thank you, council. The first reading has passed. And thank you, Patrick. for-
This will be the only reading since we're
first and
now
only?
approving these by resolution.
Very good. Well, then congratulations to the McIntyres as well. We'll now move on to 10A, and that is to accept and file annual audit from Hinkle and Company, PC. Now we'll invite the crew up. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This evening, we have Jim Hinkle, who was our lead auditor for our annual audit. But before I turn it over to him, I would like to just thank all of the hard work that our finance department did, and then also thank the departments for their cooperation during our audit. I think that overall, everything went very well. We did get our comprehensive annual financial report completed. We are submitting it to the Government Finance Officers Association again for hopefully their award. We're anticipating that we will receive it. And at this point, I will go ahead and turn it over to Jim Hinkle, and he can discuss any other items that you may have.
Come on up, Mr. Hinkle. Councilmember Dennehy, did you want to make a comment?
I'd like to make a comment real quick, Madam Mayor. Tammy, I would like to just say thank you to you and your staff. I know that this becomes a busy time and getting all this stuff done and answering all our questions. And you guys have done nothing but an exceptional job. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll make sure the staff knows that as well.
Is this one on? Thank you very much. My name is Jim Hinkle with Hinkle and Company CPAs, and I appreciate the opportunity to make a presentation regarding the annual audit of the financial statements. We begin our audit like we did last year with a interim work where we analyze and gain an understanding of any changes to and update the city's internal control structure over the accounting department. Primarily, we are looking for a segregation of duties within the execution, approval, and recording of transactions so that not one person is responsible for all three of those, but at least a second person, if not more, are involved in those. That way, one person cannot control all of an accounting transaction. During that review, we then identify the control features within the internal controls, the approval of disbursements prior to the disbursement being made, things of that nature, the approval of the account coding that the disbursement is going to be recorded to, and we select a random sample of disbursements and payroll transactions, and we test those control features. We test them to make sure they're operating as intended and that statistically we can rely upon those control features. That allows us to really do two things. The first thing is to determine whether or not the accounting department has any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the internal control structure. A significant deficiency is a design flaw that would allow an error in the accounting department to go undetected in the ordinary course of business. And a material weakness is a significant deficiency that would result in a material misstatement to the financial statements as a whole. And based upon our analysis of the control structure and our testing of the control features, we did not find any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the accounting department. So the policies, the procedures in place and operating as designed and have the controls to allow accounting transactions to be recorded appropriately and accurately. The second thing that allows us to do is to design our tests over the actual financial statements. In light of responses from last year's audit, as well as the effect of the pandemic may or may not have had on the city, we altered some of our audit procedures to add a little bit of surprise in our audit procedures and to do some additional testing in areas such as sales tax and things like that, since this was a unusual year from prior years. We mainly do substantive testing, which is tested details and analytic review. Tested details is exactly what it sounds like. We drill down into account balances and we look at supporting documentation such as invoices, grant agreements, contracts to verify the accuracy of those account balances. And then our analytic review is where we compare the current year to the prior year, current year to budget numbers, balance sheet to income statement numbers, looking for relationships that we either do not expect or cannot explain. And if we find those, then we actually will do more tested details on those areas to make sure that the accounts are correctly recorded. All of that work culminates in our opinion, and that is the opinion on the financial statements. In this case, is an unmodified opinion, which in layman's term is a clean opinion. Basically states that the financial statements are prepared in accordance with general accepted accounting principles and applied on a basis consistent with the prior years. That's the result that you want. This year was a little bit of an unusual year in that with the COVID monies coming in from the federal government, the city actually had federal grant expenditures of $1,700,000, which exceeded the $750,000 requirement that requires the city to obtain what we call the single audit. And back before 1984, you would have us do the financial statement audit, and then you'd have auditors from every federal department that the city receives money in coming in and auditing compliance. Now you have a single audit where the external auditors are required to test compliance with major federal award programs along with the financial statement audit. The uniform guidance requirements by the federal government outlines what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to do it. And for this fiscal year ending 2020, the uniform guidance required us to test the detailed compliance of the COVID relief money that the city received. So we have issued two opinions in the back of the financial statements in the single audit section. The first one is our report on compliance and internal control in regards to government auditing standards. And what this opinion is covering is whether or not the city has the internal controls in place to determine what federal programs it receives money from and what those compliance requirements are so they can maintain compliance with those requirements. And that if we find any issue of noncompliance in any federal award during any part of our audit, we notify of the noncompliance in that report. That's the first opinion in this back section. Our opinion is an unmodified opinion, states that the city does have the internal controls in place to determine the federal award programs they participate in and the resulting requirements, compliance requirements, and that we did not find any issues of non-compliance on any federal award programs. The second opinion is the compliance and internal controls in regards to uniform guidance. And that opinion covers our results of testing that major program, the COVID relief money. So we go to the federal clearinghouse and we pull down the actual compliance requirements for that grant. We select random or a certain number of transactions with respect to that grant program, and we test the compliance of the city with each and every compliance requirement that is required under that grant. And this opinion specifically addresses that grant. And that is also an unmodified or clean opinion that the city did have the internal control structure in place to ensure that the city was in compliance with the COVID relief grant award, and that throughout all of our testing, we did not find any non-compliance with respect to the COVID relief money. So as long as the city has expenditures in excess of $750,000 that year, they will have to have this single audit in addition to a financial statement audit. So all in all, we issued 3 opinions. All of those were unmodified or clean opinions. We also issued a required communication letter like we do on every audit and every year. And by standards, we're required to communicate in writing whether or not certain events have occurred during the audit. And in this case, we did not have any of those events that occurred. We did not have disagreements with management. We did not have difficulties in doing the audit itself. We're not aware of management communicating with other auditors with the old opinion shopping, where if we didn't like what was going on, they would look for somebody that would agree with them. And we're required to communicate that if we are aware of it and we're not aware of it. And we did not make any audit adjustments so that there were not any errors within the accounting records that we found that we had to adjust the city's books for. So there were no audit adjustments with respect to the city's books and records in the compilation of the audit of the financial statement itself. I would like to note that we felt as auditors, and I actually did most of the audit work myself out in the field here at the offices, that we had open transparency with the accounting department. Everything that we asked for, we were provided in a reasonable time frame, and we never felt like we were kept from anything or not allowed to ask questions in any certain area. So we felt like we were able to ask for information or documents of whatever we felt we needed to be able to satisfy our professional standards and our work with respect to concluding the audit opinions. So we felt like we had open transparency through all the process of the audit. It's a tremendous document, the annual financial statements. And I appreciate Tammy and Rebecca's time. They answered a lot of emails and a lot of questions and provided a lot of documents for us. And so I know that all of that work is in addition to their daily work. So I thank you to you all for all of your help throughout this process. They were very responsive to every one of our requests throughout the process. Any questions? I said a lot. This is a little bit different this year with the single audits. So we had a little bit more to talk about, but are there any questions at all?
Jim, thank you for being here today, especially coming in person. And
My pleasure.
the recognition that having an independent audit of this and accountability from an outsider to show that we are being open and transparent and spending money properly is incredibly important. I'll say I also had an opportunity to speak with a council member from a different city in Colorado. They are not eligible for any grants because they do not have audits. And so just having an audit, but also having clean audits that are unmodified are extremely important in many ways.
I would agree.
Any other questions? Well then, excellent and thorough work. I would like to ask for a motion, please, to approve and accept this annual audit.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve and accept the annual financial audit.
I'll second.
There has been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call a vote, please.
Councilmember Schmisher.
Aye.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hawkes.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Aye.
It is approved by council. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Jim Hinkle. Well, now move on to item B. And this is the first reading and adoption by title only of Resolution 14, Series of 2021, entitled "A Resolution of the City of Canyon City, Colorado, adopting the city's pay philosophy and 2021 pay structure." Ivy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So on July 7th, staff along with Graves Consulting presented the results of the compensation and classification study. At that time, staff recommended moving forward with option 2. Council unanimously approved. So tonight we're here asking for approval of Resolution 14, Series 2021, with an effective date of July 10th, 2021.
Are there any questions or comments from council? Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was not able to attend the meeting where this was originally discussed, but I did go online and I did download the presentations, which I did read. And I do have some questions. So Exhibit A, the compensation philosophy, structure, and process overview. Does it cover the police department?
It does.
Then my further question is, we talk about cities. There's some discussion in the presentations of where we will do the market analysis. Is that intended to include the police departments of those localities?
So the market analysis or the market area, it does include the PD for that area as well. And that's in the separate pay structure. Ivy, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it all.
So as we go through this, we have, the different markets are discounted based off of the criteria that Graves Consulting used. And then we'll be using CML, their pay survey as one of those things moving forward to keep that adjusted.
Thank you. I think it's important I would think that it would be important to have some of the criteria for how police departments are selected. I don't know, not being present for the presentation where this was discussed, but I did download it and read the whole thing. So there are, I have some concerns that we get the appropriate yardsticks for our police department to compare against.
I think, Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick, that in the discussion, that there was a pretty lengthy discussion about making sure that there was accurate and comparable yardsticks.
I did check for the video of that. It was not downloaded yet, so I was not able to see any of the discussion. So there was discussion. About
there was quite a bit, and
Mhm.
the Grace consultant really did a good job in explaining how in depth she went in doing that and doing some changes based, like if it was in Denver, that there would need to be some, a little bit of decrease because of where we live in Canyon City, even other municipalities that were similar to ours, and it was quite the matrix.
It is, it's quite a lot of information, and the idea was to have more data points and then discounting them appropriately based off of size and scope.
and concerning those data points, it would seem to me that, so having missed the discussion of this, but in terms of determining the external market, it would seem to me that it would be appropriate to have some metric in there concerning residential, commercial, industrial property values to be able to compare to Canyon City. Because if you have a community that's similar size, but they've got, $1 billion of property value and we have 100 million, that obviously implies a different tax base and a different result in pay scales for employees in that area. And so does this metric, does the external market analysis include such metrics as residential, commercial, industrial property values?
I don't know that it went into that type of detail, but it was discounted on other items, and maybe Ivy can talk a little bit more about that.
Yep, it doesn't go into that level of detail, but like for the Employers Council survey, it does break it down into geographic areas. And then you can take that information and scale up or down, depending on the location.
I still have my concern that there needs to be some metric in our policy that deals with property values, so that you can make sure that you are applying the appropriate adjustments.
I feel like we had a little bit of that discussion as well, because the Graves consultant, she actually does work all over the state of Colorado. So luckily she's very familiar with the mountain towns and their property values versus ours. Even though the population might be the same, it's a whole different world. And so she's very familiar with that and made appropriate adjustments. I remember having this conversation. I don't remember how detailed it was, but I wish she was here tonight. She would be able to, I think, to have a really good conversation.
Yeah, the way they discounted it, I don't know specifically that they're getting down into as granular as you're talking about, but discounting the larger metro markets or larger police forces, that was taken into account during the discounting phase. So when they run the averages, it'd be the discounted averages. So a lot of that is already accounted for within that analysis.
So rephrasing that, the suggested pay scales that we have in front of us are a result of that analysis where the appropriate factors were discounted. So my question then is for future, because we're going to be periodically adjusting, will it be this same firm that does that, or is this intended to be city staff?
So it's intended to be city staff. So Graves Consulting is leaving behind a lot of that work for us to be able to do that ourselves. And over the next, is it 2 years, Ivy? Lori Graves from Graves Consulting will provide additional consulting and not necessarily additional consulting, but available to answer questions at no additional charge.
Okay, thank you. I do have one other comment, I guess. Our policy, Exhibit A says, for most positions, it is anticipated that it should take approximately 20 years to advance from minimum of the range to the maximum. Do we have any metrics on what our median age or median term of service for our employees are? The reason I'm asking is because it seems like 20 years is a little bit short to me to use as a standard. That means if someone starts work with the city at 25, at age 45, they're going to be maxed out or potentially maxed out, depending on reviews and things of that nature. And so I'm concerned that we're creating a problem for ourselves down the road, that if we use the 20-year standard, that we're going to have, when we get 50% of our employees over 15 years, we're going to have to come back and say, oh, gee whiz, our maximums are way too low. And so that's I realize there's some give and take here because we're talking about a specific dollar amount that's applied each year or available each year, awardable each year under this pay policy. And so I'm concerned that 20 years is too short.
Tammy and Ivy, do you have a response?
One thing that is going to be built into those ranges is that every year the ranges will adjust. It won't adjust necessarily by CPI, but it will still expand. So just because the range is set today doesn't mean that that's going to be the same max in 20 years. And typically you should look back at your salary structure every 5 years. And so we feel that by providing those adjustments to the ranges, that will still remain competitive and fall pretty close to market and still allowing for growth. The other thing is it is 20 years in a position. So it doesn't mean that I get hired today in the Parks Department as a maintenance worker that it's gonna be 20 years, even though I've promoted to different positions. It's gonna actually be in that position as well.
I see.
And there's also raises based on certifications and education and other advancements.
And to go back to your question regarding tenure, Ivy's actually working on some statistics through our payroll system on tenure. I don't know if you know offhand what our average tenure is.
I don't off the top of my head, and I can only go back for as long as what we've had Paylocity in place. So I'm limited on the data that I have so far, but we're working on building that data that we can present to council.
Okay. Changing tax a little bit. The amount of money that we're being asked for this year is $429,000, give or take a little bit. How much of that goes to city staff and how much of that goes to the police department?
I do not have that breakdown with me this evening. I can get that for you in the morning, or I can go, if you give me a few minutes, I can go upstairs and.
Well, let me tell you the basis for my question is because as I understand the phase 2 that we're selecting for this, that we're going to make available every year $500,000 for pay increases. I saw in the presentation that the amount needed for the police department is $69,000 per year, which means that we have $431,000 pay increases available for city staff and $69,000 for the police department. And I don't think that is.
I don't think that's what it is.
So for the first, for phase 1 implementation for the rest of this year, for just the sworn officers, it was about $100,000 for the PD. I don't recall what the balance was for the civilian staff at the PD.
Tammy's going to run and get those numbers for us. I think that's important for you to have that.
So what I'm doing is I'm quoting pay structure police from the Graves Consulting presentation, the 2021 compensation classification and job analysis study said estimated total annual cost to bring to range minimum and under pay structure police, estimated total annual cost to bring to range minimum is $69,000.
So Graves was different than you'll see another report from that was put together by Ivy and Tammy, and that's different than what Graves has.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, we took a more aggressive approach than the Graves recommendation.
Great.
And
Great.
Tammy is getting those numbers for us.
Okay, because my concern is that we know that there is a pay issue for city staff. We also know that we have a severe pay issue with our sworn officers, and I just want to make sure that as we adjust and adopt policies here, that we recognize that and put the emphasis where it belongs on public safety for our officers.
So with the implementation of phase one, we took a more aggressive approach on the PD side to move them further in the band. So those numbers are reflected there.
Right.
And that's a first year number?
That's
That's for the rest of this
for
year?
the rest of this year.
And do you know what it is for the next year?
Not off the top of my head, I don't. That I will need Ivy or Tammy to bring down those numbers.
Yeah, if I can see the papers that you wrote off, I'll take a look at it. But we had lengthy conversations too about the importance of our public safety, but there was also a part in that conversation where we had in the museum, we couldn't fill a position. It was at $13.22. And it took 20, I mean, Lisa Studd said that was the same starting wage she had 20 years ago. And inflation has doubled twice in that period, but we still have that same. So it's not just the police department, but there's plenty of others. Is there any other questions from City Council while we get those numbers?
I just want to make a comment. And I'm piggybacking on what John said. Excuse me. That was one of the things that I brought up when we had the meeting with regards to when you're looking at the impact of businesses and everything else. Because as I said, that we can look at small communities in a sense that have more, in a sense, high-end businesses than we have here. And so they, in a sense, have the ability to give out better raises just because of that. So I was concerned about that also and everything. And I also am concerned with regards to the fact that when we look at a 20-year program, I know it's difficult to say, but when we look at, as long as we look at whether it's a 20-year or 30-year program, we need to look at it with the booklet that says it to be adjusted along the way, because nothing stays the same. You know, when I was working with the state, we maxed out with the chief of the highway patrol in my 10th year with them. And so the state had to make readjustments to up that ladder for the pay scale and all that. So we need to look at all that stuff there. And then my other concern is with regards to when we look at pay increases. We have to look at it in its total totality. In other words, are we giving pay increases with regards to every aspect of our city employees, whether it's a guy at the Parks Department or whether it's the recruit police officer that just came into the business? We need to look at it in its entire opening so that as we compete for people to come here and live and work here, we're taking that in consideration with regards to, okay, someone comes to work for us from Lahana, okay? Why did he come here to look for employment here versus Lahana? Apparently, we're offering something that they didn't. So we look at those kinds of things. And I think we've done that, you know, and that's really the hardest part to look at when you talk about who gets a raise and how much of a raise do they get. Everything. So I think we're on the right track, but like I said, I was real concerned with regards to the economic impact with regard to Canyon City versus other small communities that have more of that type of a structure.
All right, Tammy.
Okay, so I don't know what was discussed while I was gone. General fund in total is $304,339.78. Of that, for the remainder of the year, $144,146.52 is estimated for the police department. Keep in mind that is the entire police department, which is sworn and non-sworn positions.
Correct.
And there's a total of 134 staff members that will be getting pay increases out of 151.
Correct.
Yes.
There are a lot of department heads here tonight, and I was wondering if any of you wish to address City Council about the pay increase structure.
Madam Mayor, members of council. I just want to say, first off, thank Tammy and Ivy for the wonderful job they've done. They put a lot of effort and insight into this pay structure. I've had a chance to look at the numbers at the minimum and mid ranges, and I feel pretty comfortable that it's going to make us pretty competitive with even some bigger target areas that certainly have more economic capital than we do. But those are the folks that we've lost officers to. I think those are the folks that are hurting us in our recruiting efforts. So I'm anxious to get this vote tonight so that I can update our recruiting flyers and hopefully, because right now I've got 5 in backgrounds and I don't have anybody in the queue. I've got 8 vacancies. So I still need to find 3 more people. So I'm really hopeful that we can get this passed so that we can move forward in a productive manner. I thank you for your time and consideration in all this.
Chief, what has the conversations been at the CCPD?
Anxiety. They really are hopeful that we can get this pay raise. As I shared with council last time I was here, there was a young officer that we almost lost because I was able to have a conversation with Mr. Stevens and assure him that a pay raise was certainly within our grasp, and he's held on. So I think it's a little anxiety. Folks are really hopeful, and we're just ready to move forward.
Well, I imagine there's a lot of anxiety because this isn't about being able to afford luxuries. This is about being able to pay basic living expenses.
Yes, ma'am.
For rent, for groceries, for childcare.
As they say, I have babies to feed and bills to pay.
And that's what we're talking about.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there another department head that would wish to address council on this subject? Looks like Bob Hartzman from the Water Department, may.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, staff. I think staff's put a lot of work into this to try to come up with the best plan. I echo the chief's comments on thanking all of you for the support on this. Water department's not in quite the same maybe definition as when you think of public safety, but yet we do have the public's health and welfare in our hands in maintaining the water supply to town. And not to the extent that the PD is, but we've had our own fair share of trying to recruit quality individuals who want to, first and foremost, be here. And then secondly, are willing to put in the commitment, work hard. One of the things that I was pleased to see in this analysis was the changes for our water distribution department based upon their certifications. It's been overlooked for a long while now. Certifications have been required at for water treatment plant operators for many years. It's only been within the last 25 years that it's been a requirement for distribution operators as well. And unfortunately, a lot of those individuals they're seen as construction workers, but yet they're much more than that. I believe this is going to be a positive step in going forward, not only for the water department, but for the city overall, in its ability to recruit quality individuals to do what it is we do. And so, again, thank you for your support on this. Thanks for staff, Ivy and Tammy, and all their time on it. We probably kind of, as the others, we kind of had maybe the easy part, but nonetheless, we did take the time to complete the questionnaires and maybe some more so than others. But all in all, I think this is going to be a great thing for the city and its employees, and ultimately will benefit our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob Hartzman. And I'd like to point out, as there are a lot of department heads that are here today, that in this case study, none of the department heads are getting pay raises. Is that correct?
I think there's probably some for some department heads, but I know, there are others that won't see any pay increases.
There's never, for by and far, this is for our boots on the ground employees that are providing services as servants to the community, to provide water, public safety, take care of our parks, clean the public restrooms. This is what we're advocating
Yep,
for.
and that's what we need. I mean, when we have individuals, like I say, who want to be here, do a good job for us, makes my job a whole heck of a lot easier. So,
Right. This is totally anecdotal and there's no science behind this comment whatsoever. But I do have a Facebook page as a mayor, and I've recently done 2 different posts, one about a potential investment in Canyon City that could raise taxes, and also one about the possible pay raises for our employees. And you never know what's going to happen when you talk about spending more taxpayer money, what the result of the public will be, especially on social media. And of course, for the possible of added taxes for a community rec center, there was a lot of conversation about what are we spending our taxpayer money on. But when we talked about paying our police officers and our parks department and our water employees, there was an overwhelming positivity around that. And some of those comments were, thank goodness, it's truly shocking what these city employees do and how little they earn for it. Thank goodness our people are worth it. Excellent news. I knew before the survey, with all the openings posted on Facebook, $19 for an entry-level deputy who risks their life for us doesn't compute. Wow, common sense. And it was nice to see in a place that can tend to be viral, that this was embraced well, the recognition that our employees are valued and they have value and they need to be paid accordingly, and that we need to be competitive, not only to be able to hire and fill our ranks, but to for everyone to have that experience and longevity. We need to keep them here for 20+ years because we need their long-term experience and leadership.
well, that's what makes Canyon City a great place to live, is our citizens.
That's right.
Yep.
So thank you. Councilmember Dennehy, do you have anything? Any other comments from City Council? Are we ready for a motion? Would you like to entertain us with one?
Madam Mayor, I would like to make a resolution that we pass resolution number 14, series of 2020.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for this resolution. Any discussion?
That would be series 2021.
Whoops, sorry.
Resolution 14, series of 2021.
I'm still a year late. I apologize.
It always happens. Let's call a vote.
Councilmember Dennehy,
Aye.
Councilmember Hawkins.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Smisher.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Aye.
The resolution passes unanimously. Congratulations, city staff. Thank you, Tammy and Ivy. And a heavy sigh of relief to our employees who need this desperately. So congratulations and well earned.
Madam Mayor, on behalf of all of the employees of the city of Canyon City, we just want to say thank you for your support and your recognition, and can't say thank you enough for this. Big thank you to City Administrator Stevens for his support while we worked through this. It did take a big time commitment for Tammy and I, so appreciate his patience as some of the other projects kind of put on the back burner for a substantial amount of time while we worked through this. And can't go without saying a huge thank you to my partner in crime, Tammy. She was very instrumental in this.
No crime here. No crime.
She was, she was an exceptional partner, and she's a huge asset to the city, and I just can't thank her enough.
Yeah, thank you, Tammy and Ivy. You both did an amazing job.
Thank
I
you.
know in our conversations, you guys did spend countless hours of scenarios of what would be the best overall for everybody. And you've put tons of heart and time and a lot of emotion into this, because it is people's livelihood and ability just to be able to live here in Canyon City. So thank you so much. And I think Tindinihi wanted to have a round of applause. Round. Thank you. We are going to move on to item C now, and that's the first reading and adoption by title only of Resolution 15, Series of 2021, entitled, "A Resolution of the City of Canyon City, Colorado, approving the waiver of certain fees for the construction of a new residence by the Canyon City Building Class through the Home Building Education Foundation."
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This, I don't know if it's every year, but Home by Ed, the construction, education construction crew over at the high school, they're getting ready to start work on their next project. And this is a resolution waiving their fees that normally they would have to pay. We've done this before, and we have Kathy Olsh, our building official here. I believe we've done this the previous 2 years to waive the fees. There are some additional fees in there this year because when we adopted the new building code, we put in plan review for residential, and we're asking to waive those fees as well for this project. It's a great opportunity for students to learn the trades, and that there's certainly a need for tradesmen in the community, not just community across the entire country, but we need electricians, we need plumbers, we need carpenters, and this is a great opportunity to get hands-on experience.
Kathy, would you like to address council?
Madam Mayor, Council, this is a great opportunity for our students. The program has been struggling for several years now. It's having a hard time getting students interested in becoming in the construction world. This program has thought about closing its doors the last few years, and we've got a good group. They've elected a new president on the board, which is Jeremy Carochi, and he asked me to help out all that we could, and I told him that I would try to seek council's approval again of waiving some fees, and hopefully we can get a big class again this year to build a new home. Last year was a big struggle because of COVID, so nothing happened. So the last one that happened was in the 2018-2019.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Is there a representative from the program here tonight?
No, he wasn't able to come.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would recommend that, for future requests such as this, we put the total amount, what the request is going to cover, and do we know what that number is?
I do not have that number in front of me. Kathy, do you happen to have that?
I don't, because I don't know what size a house it is. I would say with the fees that they're asking there, with the water tap and meter pit fee is like $5,714. The rest of it is probably, I would say right around $4,000. We're probably looking maybe a total, I would say no more than $10,000 in fees.
That's an investment well worth it.
Councilmember Reed.
So these are great. Is there anything else, Kathy, that you can think of that we can do to assist?
No, it might help out when we're going to start having meetings, and they've asked me to participate this year. It might help out that I reach out to council members to see if they would like to go to the meetings and talk to the students. And maybe that would help them understand what you all do as well.
I mean, the financial part obviously is crucial, but there's also a lot of experience your department or different things like that can continue to invest in these kiddos in this program that's super necessary, and for multiple reasons, including the fact that we are still in housing crisis locally, and we need more people in the trades. And so I just want to kind of think outside the box more sometimes than just the financial aspect, but if there's other things that we can do to be supporting, because it does have an economic impact for the city long-term as well, including in the goodwill with the kiddos and the program and everything too. So I guess my ask would be that if you do hear of more opportunities and other ways that the city can help this program, that you would just continue to share it with us so that way we can jump on those opportunities.
Awesome.
Economic development, I'm sorry, Kathy.
Go ahead.
The Economic Development Manager, Rick Harbin, and I have been having those discussions, and one of the biggest things that we've talked about is how do you scale this? How do you get more kids into it? How do you turn it into not just building a home, but construction management and architecture and all those types of things. So we're trying to get innovative and look at other ways to help the school grow the program.
Maybe even opportunities for, local builders who are taking some of these kiddos on and internships, and maybe there's some sort of a way to.
And they have been doing that all summer.
Right, so maybe
several of them.
there's a reward or something like that for that, and less fees for, I don't know. I just want to really make sure that we're diving into this as much as we possibly can, because it's so absolutely needed. So thank you.
And thank you, Mandy, for being a part of that passion to move that forward. I just also like to point out that we did just receive the memo from Catherine and Corey about affordable housing incentives options, and also with hosting Rural Philanthropy Days in September, we are having that housing forum that's bringing in all of the parties that we would want to talk to about those kinds of opportunities and the grant money that's out there to help and collaborations. So I'd really recommend, if council is here, to sign up and be a part of that housing forum. And there's some networking opportunities as well. But with that, if there's no more discussion on this one in particular, or
Madam Mayor, I'd love
Yes.
to make a motion that we pass resolution number 15, series of 2021.
Second.
there's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll call a vote.
Councilmember Schmisher,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Dennehy,
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Thank you, council. It passes unanimously. Thank you, Kathy and Ryan and Rick Harmon for your work on this project.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Next is item D, second reading and adoption by title only, ordinance of 15, series of 2021. And this is concerning the ADU on Griffin.
And this is a second reading. We've not received any additional public comments, and staff would ask council to approve on second reading.
I'd like to entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor,
Yeah.
I move that we approve ordinance 15, series 2021 on second reading.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call a vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Schmisher.
Aye.
Councilmember Dennehy,
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you, City Council. We're now on item E, introduction and first reading by title only of ordinance 19, series of 2021, entitled an ordinance of the City of Canyon City repealing and reenacting chapter 3.12 and amending title 3 by the addition of a new chapter 3.13 of the Canyon City Municipal Code concerning sales and use tax.
Good evening again, Mayor and City
Hi,
Council.
Tammy.
This evening, before you, you have ordinance 19 series of 2021, making changes to our collection of construction use tax. We did do a presentation at the June 9th general government meeting to go over how it currently is done and how we would like to do that. After that meeting, legal counsel did look to determine where the code needed to be modified, and those that is presented to you. We also did provide notice, the required 60-day notice to Fremont County. So that has also been done. So tonight we're asking for approval on first reading.
Any questions from council? Councilmember Schmisher.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Director Nordyke, was there any response from the county up with regard to that 60-day notice?
I did not hear anything.
But you had spoken to them previously. They knew it was coming, correct?
They did, and we sent it via email, and didn't we also hand, I thought we were hand delivered, certified mail. So they do have it.
And there wasn't a response?
No response.
Thank you.
And if I may just clarify, Madam Mayor.
Absolutely.
So your agenda is, the language in your agenda is incorrect for what's being amended. So it's sections 3.13040 and 3.13060 and not chapter 3.2 and the addition of 3.13. That's something that we did last year. So I just wanted to clarify that.
So where is the new language?
On the
it's on
bill
the
itself
bill
has it
itself.
correct.
Yeah, the ordinance is correct. in the
Okay.
packet. So I just wanted to, in case anybody noticed
All
that.
right, so whoever would like to make a motion, please use the ordinance itself. Are there any other questions? Even, we actually discussed this at length at a general government meeting or vision meeting. And the purpose of this is to become more business friendly, make business easier to do for our construction, so that you don't have to pay up front on estimates, but you pay as you go when you spend the money.
And I should note, sorry, Madam Mayor, that the ordinance will not become effective until September 1st. That was what staff recommended as the cutoff date. So there will be a delayed
Excellent.
effective date.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
What is the number again, or the letter? What is the ordinance called? I can't find it in my.
Ordinance.
Ordinance 19.
Which one?
Ordinance 19. It's kind of hard because our book is a little off with the changes.
So the motion would be, you can make the motion to approve or deny ordinance number 19. Sorry.
Okay. Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Gonzalez.
I would like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 19 series of 20. Is it 20? This was 2020, but it's 2021, right?
2021, correct.
I'll second.
There has been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call vote.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Aye.
Councilmember Dennehy,
Hi.
Councilmember Hopkins, Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Schmisher,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hammer.
Hi.
Thank you, council. And again, thank you, Tammy. You've been awfully busy. So we
Thank you.
appreciate it. It's been for good causes.
Thank you.
All right, we will have a second reading on this ordinance at our next city council meeting. We're now on our last item, F. Elijah. We don't get you at this seat very often. I guess
I
we had
know,
to make
glad to
sure
be
that you were, we made it last.
Still awake, good.
We could just bathe in the glory of our IT,
Yeah.
having both of you here today. So I am going to read the item F. This is an introduction and first reading by title only of ordinance 2022 series of 2021 entitled Charter Communications Franchise Agreement.
Right, so before you have the ordinance number 22 for the charter's franchise renewal. This is a renewal for an agreement with Charter Communications, actually with TCI Cablevision back in 2001. It was a 20-year cable franchise agreement. Charter Communications is the successor to that original agreement. That agreement did expire December 31st of 2020. So before you have the renewal agreement that has been in negotiations since late 2018. Both staff, the attorneys, and Charter has worked quite a bit on negotiations back and forth. With the new agreement that's in your packet, you will see some noticeable differences. First being the term of this agreement. This is a 7-year with a 5-year renewal term for a total of 12-year as opposed to the original 20. So we're shortening that up a little bit. You will also notice that the franchise fee has gone from 3% to 4%. That is in part to cover the reduction of a PEG fee that Charter Communications assessed on individual subscribers. The 50-cent per month per subscriber charge for public access was dropped in this renewal agreement. Another notable change would be that we do have a high definition clause for our cable television going out to the community. Part of our requirement to get that high definition content out to the community is that we have to subscribe to a dedicated fiber line to send that signal out, which does cost us a little bit of money. So you'll see in the memo that with the loss of the PEG revenue and the increase from the dedicated line of service and hardware that we need, we are somewhere in the estimated range of $28,000 down, which is the reasoning for the 4% as opposed to the 3% on the original agreement. There is also a section in the new agreement that Charter will keep its current storefront open for at least 2 years for customers to come in and be physically present in the store. I am available for any questions, and the representative from Charter, John Lee, is also here.
Would you like to go ahead and present to council?
Madam Mayor, thank you very much. City Council, City Administrator Stevens, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you, and I appreciate all the good and thoughtful work that Elijah and your outside counsel and everybody has put into this agreement. It took a little while. I think COVID probably played into that, and just frankly, how federal law has changed a little bit over the last 2 years, without getting real wonky, but with how the franchisee and the grantor interact over what is and what is not part of a franchise fee anymore. That whole legal thing playing out with the FCC, I think, kind of delayed us a little bit too. But I think we're in a good spot now. 7 years is a great place to be. Come back in 7 years, figure out what it is you're doing and how you want to do it. Technology is changing so fast in the way we're presenting things. I mean, I'm thrilled to be in front of you people tonight instead of doing this over Zoom again. But again, that has shown how municipalities get their content and their brand and their message out to people. It's changing so fast that I think 7 years is a good period. We'll see where we're at and what we're doing as far as 4K, or is it all IP, or who knows what. I think it's a good solution for both parties. And I appreciate all the great time and work you folks have put in. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Councilmember Swisher.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With the elimination of the PEG fee and the increase of the franchise fee from 3% to 4%, what would be the typical consumer, how would that be reflected on a typical consumer's bill?
So if that increase is passed to the consumer, typically for a 1% increase, you're going to have a $1 charge for a $100 cable bill. Of course, you're going to see the 50 cents for the PEG fee drop off. So you're only seeing a 50-cent increase per month. And cable bills vary. John might be able to speak to this a little bit better, but it's minimal.
Right. It'll vary based on package, and it can vary for an individual subscriber, right? It can vary month over month. Do you do a bunch of pay-per-view? Is it the holidays and you're renting a bunch of movies? So your fee would be a little higher that month, and you're assessed the 4% on your individual cable bill. So, it'll fluctuate a little bit, but I mean, pretty de minimis to the end user at the end of the day.
I guess I'm always a bit uncomfortable with increasing fees and
Right.
passing that on to the consumer, even if it is de minimis in nature. Is a 0.5% fee possible? Is raising it just to 3.5% to cover the decrease in the PEG fee, so that the consumer, no additional fees or charges are passed on to the consumer? Is that possible?
So during the negotiations, that was considered. The reason that we did not decide to go for 0.5% is that we also see the increased outbound communication fee that we have assessed to the city to send our public access content out to Charter's head end. Due to that fact, it was over 3.5%. It was over 0.5% that would have been required to cover the loss of PEG revenue plus the increase. And also it was decided that it was better for the financial folks on both ends, as opposed to a very odd number, 3.8765, we just rounded up to 4.
And to be clear, under federal law, you are entitled to up to 5% if you so chose.
Thanks. And while I'm certainly a fan of public access and really appreciate all of the thought and effort that's gone into not only this agreement, but also re-envisioning what might be coming out of the city in terms of how you would be using that line. I'm still a bit concerned about passing on an increase in fees to consumers, even though it seems like it would be pretty de minimis.
Any other comments from council? I would like to entertain a motion. Councilmember Dennehy.
Madam Mayor and Council, I would like to make a move to approve ordinance number 22, series of 2021 on first reading.
A second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll call a vote.
Councilmember Dennehy,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Aye.
Councilmember Hawkes,
Aye.
Councilmember Schmisher,
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Aye.
All right, the motion has passed. And this concludes our meeting for tonight. We are officially adjourned. Thank you